Okay, welcome back, boys and girls. Feels like I haven't done this in a long time. We had a little break. Okay, so we are on to another lesson. Today our book is Gramps at School. It is a Mrs. O class series. So remember, a series means that there are more books about these characters. You can head up. On the right-hand side, put your date. We are on Book 101, Gramps at School, and our word work is going to be prefixes. So at this point, you can pause me to get the heading written down in the title. Okay? All right, so we talked about prefixes before. So what are prefixes? Can you say it before I do? So a prefix is a word part that goes in front of a word that changes the meaning. So our knowledge of prefixes is really important because it's going to help you with your decoding. It's going to help you with increasing your vocabulary and really understand what's going on in the story. Okay, so very straightforward word work today, guys. We have two prefixes. We have the prefix non, which means not, and we have the prefix pre, which means before. Okay, so let's do the non words first. So we have nonsense, non-stick, and non-stop. Okay, so do any of you have non-stick pans in your house? I can't live without mine. So a non-stick pan is supposed to not burn. So whatever you cook in it, it shouldn't stick. Okay, so it shouldn't, in theory. All right, and then our pre-words, preview, preheat, and prepay. So if you're going to heat something before you cook it, that's preheating. Okay, so these are a bit easier than the prefixes that we looked at before. What I want you to do is I want you to try to find at least two more non-words, a word that means not something, and two more pre-words, just to add to the list that I gave you already. Okay? All right, so let's get into our book. So this book was called Gramps at School. This is a fiction book. It follows Tony, and they are actually having career day at his school, and his grandpa is invited to share with the children, the students, about his career. But Tony is feeling a little bit embarrassed because of his grandfather. His grandfather didn't finish school. His grandfather doesn't use the most eloquent English. He's often quite dirty from the work that he does. He deals a lot with his hands. And Tony's a bit embarrassed. He's wondering how his friends are going to feel about his grandpa's presentation. He's wondering how they're going to think about him. And before we start reading, I want you to try to make connections to if you've ever been in Tony's position, where somebody in your family, because of something that they have done or the way that they live their lives, you might have felt a bit embarrassed, maybe for your friends to see, maybe for your teachers to see, etc. When you come back to school, I want you to actually share. So I'm going to share, I had a couple that I wanted to share, but I'm going to share one. I actually had a cousin when I was growing up, and he got into a lot of trouble. He was doing a lot of stealing, and he joined a gang, and he actually went to jail because he did some really, really bad things. And I remember, I think I was with my friends once. It was several years ago. We were out at dinner, and then he walked past, and he was like, hey, and he called me by my first name. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's my cousin. And so I just kind of kept my head straight, and my friends were like, he's speaking to you. Do you know him? And even though we're family, even though I care about him, I still kind of felt embarrassed that I was associated with somebody who got into trouble. So I'm not going to say if I was wrong or right, because everybody is entitled to their opinions. But the reason I shared that story with you is because I can kind of make connections with Tony. I can think of a time where I maybe felt embarrassed about somebody in my family at some point. So just think about that, and you don't have to share if you don't want to, but you can just think about that, how we sometimes feel. Because it's good to make connections, okay? Additionally, as we're reading this story, as you're reading, I want you to think about some character traits of Gramps. Do you remember what character traits are? All right, so remember, character traits are words that describe a character's behavior, what they say, what they do, how they think, okay? So I want you to think about some words that describe Gramps as we're reading. All right, so I'm going to read a couple of pages for you, then I want you to put me on pause, and then you can read the rest on your own. Okay? All right, so pages 2 and 3. Tony's grandfather was a big man. He had a big voice and a huge laugh. He had big ideas, too. Sometimes when he was describing something and he flung his arms out, he just about filled the room. Tony was used to seeing his grandfather in his auto repair shop. He just couldn't picture Gramps fitting in at school. But Gramps was coming to school on Thursday, and Tony wasn't sure what to do about it. So Tony's thinking like, oh gosh, this man's going to come and embarrass me. It was career week at school. On Monday, Sasha's dad talked about making light bulbs, and Gabe's mother talked about gardening. Mrs. Vanzetti brought a plant that eats insects for the classroom, Tony told Gramps that night. Maybe you could bring in a spark plug or something. Something small, Tony was thinking. I'll come up with something, Gramps said. Don't you worry. But Tony did worry. Okay, I'll read one more page for you, and then you're going to put me on pause and read the rest on your own. On Tuesday, Daniel's mom brought in an appendix in a jar. So an appendix is a body part that's inside of you. Oops, lost an earring. That some people think that we don't really need. She talked about surgery, and she stitched up a rip in a teddy bear. It's my sister's bear, Daniel said over and over again. You could show everyone how you repair an electrical cord, Tony suggested to Gramps that night. I've got some ideas, Gramps said. So he's like, Tony, just relax. I have this covered. That was the problem. Gramps was full of ideas, crazy ideas. What if he brought his tailpipe cooker and passed out biscuits he cooked in it on his drive to school? Even worse, what if he brought his stinky fly trap or his toilet bowl bird bath? Tony would die of embarrassment. All right, so at this point, I want you to put me on pause and complete Gramps at School, and I'm going to give you an activity, a writing activity to complete. Okay, so you should have had plenty of time to finish Gramps at School. All right, so before we started reading, I actually think about character traits. I actually think about the character traits of Gramps. Okay, so we are working on vocabulary at Patrick Primary, so all of your teachers should be either doing word-a-days or activities to try to build your vocabulary, okay, so that you can start using bigger words and just understand text and more about the world around you. So, I have Gramps in the middle, and your activity is a writing activity called Supporting Character Traits, okay? So, I have 4 words here that describe Gramps. These are my words, these are the character traits that I think describe Gramps. I believe that he is determined. I believe that he is responsible. I believe that he is amicable. And I believe that he is innovative. So you might be sitting there saying, Miss Brown, I don't know what all those big words mean. Well, that's great. I'm glad that you don't know what they mean. Because what I want you to do first is I want you to either get a dictionary, or you can look at the thesaurus online. The thesaurus helps you to find synonyms, words that mean the same thing. I want you to find a more kid-friendly language for these words. So what does amicable mean? I want you to find that out. What does responsible mean? What does it mean if you are determined? What does it mean if you are innovative? Okay, so that's step 1. All right? Once you know what all of these words mean, I want you to find evidence from your book proving them. Okay? So once you find out what the word amicable means, I want you to find an example in the book of Gramps being amicable. Okay, so you're going to have to tell me the page number and what did he do that would make him amicable. Once you find out what innovative means, okay, kid language, I want you to find an example from the book. Tell me what page you found it on, and then give what the example is. Same thing with determined, same with responsible. Okay, and you're going to be writing all of this down in your writing books. Okay? So that is it. That is our lesson for today. I hope that you learned some new words. I hope that you were able to think about making connections as you're reading. And I will see you next time. Bye.